I guess the biggest stories of the weekend for me, and we were just talking about out the back here with the guys, it's the quest for balance. Finding if you've been a defensive team and you want to open up a little bit and you want to try and score some more, how far do you go? How far has the pendulum swung? And some teams are doing the reverse. Some are too offensive and trying to find some balance back to defence. And and then there's the argument around players. Geelong giving some more opportunities, some young fellas in the middle. The Suns challenging some players to return back to their best. Okay, trying to find answers forward of centre without Ben King. The Eagles now, they're in turmoil. I mean, how do you recover from a start like this, which it was already going to be a challenge, how long Adam Simpson had his finger hovering above the reset button, the rebuild button for this footy club. And now they've lost players for the long term. You're talking about, you might get them back in the back half of the year, but really, what are you getting? What are you coming back to? The year might be shot by then. They've had a horror run through the pre-season with injury anyway. So they're already playing catch-up. I just think this is going to be a decision easy made now for the West Coast Eagles that 2022 is not for us. This is the end of the road for this group now. We thought we'd have an ongoing, as we said, finger over the button for 4 to 6 weeks, find out whether they are a contender, because the start to the year wasn't too bad for them. They had the Gold Coast at home, then they got North Melbourne at Marvel, the Derby, which is always a big game for them, Collingwood, and then Sydney at home. So there was opportunity to see where they're at, see if they could start well, but that's gone now.
Was there a team or two in that search for balance who really struck you? That they are making inroads in what they're searching for?
Well, just quickly spinning through a few of the games, because we've talked about some of the games that happened on Wednesday, Thursday. I thought the best game of the series, the quality of the contest, was Essendon and the Western Bulldogs. That first half of that game, if you get a chance, have a look at that again, because it was the big boys from both teams flexing their muscle. But in terms of what we saw on the weekend, so to go to Geelong's hit out, for example, how many goals are Cameron and Hawkins going to kick this season as a combination? So last year they kicked 101. Cameron hasn't missed a beat all pre-season, they keep telling us, but just sort of need to see it. You're sort of waiting to see, okay, what does that look like? And they look terrific, the pair of them. Stengel now is the big find for them at ground level. I mean, I know this is his third club. I know he's 23. I know he's played 16, 17 games of AFL football, but he looks like this is the penny's dropped for him. He knows the importance of this. And then you look at Selwood at half forward, just looks a bit different. I know he spent some time in the middle, but it does have a different look about it, the Cats. And starts to make you wonder, Gerard, this faster ball movement, they're going to get more opportunity inside forward 50, run the risk of being scored against a bit more. Are we 4 years too late with this idea? If they had played like this, and it's a little bit like, risking the game, risking losing the game to win the game, if you like, putting the game into turnover, putting it into contest. But they've got a great contest outfit. They just win contest. And then they've played safe historically. Well, you see them on the weekend, you think, well, how much better is this version of football, is this brand of football? So really exciting for the Cats.
What did you think of Richmond?
I thought they were back in terms of their dare with the footy. We know their handball game. We talk about that a lot. I really liked the half-forward line, Baker, Bolton, Edwards. They were just flying up and down the ground. Bolton looked fantastic. Tarrant looked really solid down back, as you'd expect. A 33-year-old. Tom Lynch moved like the Tom Lynch we've sort of expected to see last year. Didn't see it as often as we like, but they were more aggressive by foot. There was a hunt for the corridor, which is not really Richmond by foot. But they were really aggressive, and this, there's not a lot to discuss with Richmond. You sort of know what you're going to get. His kicking was fantastic. His forward line pressure was really good. I thought Nankervis going to full forward and swapping with Bolter in the ruck. Soldo played a little bit as well, but more in that sort of second and third periods. I thought that was something that Damien Harbeck's experimenting with, the use of Noah Bolter, which could be quite exciting. He's just such an athlete. So there's some different things happening mixed in amongst a little bit of sameness.
There's a great, in our snap judgments of pessimism rising, pessimism setting in, or optimism, it was Shea Bolton Shea Bolton does things that good players dream of doing. He will win Mark of the Year, Goal of the Year, and possibly the Brownlow. Now we have the two best players in the comp. Cheers, Paul. That's proper snap judgment stuff, Diggy.
Yeah, he was fantastic, and he did set up a lot of scores. I mean, this is a guy, I think he was top 4 in their best and fairest last year already. So we know what he is as a player, but can he go the next level? Because with Martin spending more time in the midfield, and it looks like that's going to be the case, then they're going to need another spark forward or two. So I really got taken aback by Bolton doing what he did, Baker and Edwards in that forward half. It looks really good. The other thing to mention from the game is that with these two targets down there and now the small full forward in Stengel, the Cats kicking the ball inside 50, it was a feature in itself. And I know they've always had their plan of, they never kick a full kick. It's always a three-quarter kick and the forward meets it halfway, comes up to the footy. But their inside 50 kicking on Saturday was just a clear standout, and it sort of smacks you between the eyes when you see the quality. And now they've got, as I said, another small option. He comes at speed, little Tyson Stengel, and gets the right spots at all times. So I think it's going to be a fantastic acquisition for them.
Did Fremantle make an impression on you? So we spoke about the other side of that coin for the Eagles, and there's a lot of doom and gloom there. What did you make of the Dockers?
Yeah, I thought they were really good. The impact of Jordan Clark immediately on their ball movement out of the back half. I mean, they'd been a stagnant team last year. You look at without the footy last year, they were really poor. The year before, they were great. And then with the footy last year, they improved a little bit after being really poor the year before. So they have lost balance over the last 2 years. So they're just looking for opportunities when it's time to go. Can you get speed on the game? And Clark was that man. The amount of chains that he started, run and carry, and they dropped into forward handball chains quite regularly. Haven't seen that from Fremantle before. They've been a really patient, slow ball movement team. But the standout for me, and this is a guy that we've all been taken by at certain times. He's only played 17 games of AFL footy. Michael Frederick, his movement ahead of the ball. He's a slippery customer, but he's a great runner up and back, and he's just one player that could have a huge impact on the Fremantle forward half, and that's been the missing component, hasn't it? They haven't really had. I mean, Tabner's been a really serviceable forward, probably better than serviceable, but they have lacked one other player to be that strike player, and I think Frederick's in for a big year. And then they've got these smalls. It's almost like a bit of a no-name small forward brigade of Schultz, Swiskowski, who comes up really high in the champion data stuff, but hasn't really been recognised by the footy public yet, and Crowden, who every time the ball hit the deck, they were just there and harassing and creating scores. And they made, it's hard to work out whether it's the West Coast being really poor at ground level in their defensive 50 or Fremantle being incredibly proactive and effective. Don't know. It's hard to know. But what we saw is Fremantle looked really solid. Their inclusions look absolutely spot on. Will Brodie, it was really good around clearances. They got him for nothing. So he's one that may allow Fife to play a little bit more forward. So there's a lot to like about what Fremantle did on the weekend. But again, you got to temper it by the opposition.
The Swans and the Giants, King. I think everybody feels they've got a stake in Paddy McCartin. I reckon, wishing him nothing but the best. What was the first glimpse of Paddy for the Swans in this practice match? Off-season
steal of the year, Gerard. He looked like Heath Grundy. And I'm not sure whether it's a number 39 or what it is, but behind the ball, centre half back, he sat back, and it's the perfect mix because they're a really good defensive side around the ball. They stopped the opposition moving them really effectively, Sydney, over the last 12 months. So to play centre half back in this lineup is a great time to reset your career. But he looked terrific. Intercept marking at will. You know that he's got quality with what he does, ball use and all that sort of thing. And just maybe centre half back suits him right now more than any other position. So it's a steal. I mean, the Sydney Swans have both McCartins in the back six. One to be more locked on and do a little bit of intercepting, but gee, look good down there. I know John Longmire would have walked away from the game, and they'd be disappointed that Papley's done a hamstring. They'd have been wrapped with Heaney around the action, but we sort of know Isaac Heaney. We know he's going to be a good player. A couple of things that really stood out with the Sydney. They played Josh Kennedy almost as a back pocket type half back. I mean, this is a guy that's he's played almost 300 games, 3-time best and fairest, 3-time All-Australian as a midfielder. Now he's gone back behind the ball. So I thought that was really interesting to give guys like Warner and obviously Heaney going in there, Wicks at times, McInerney, all these younger guys getting opportunity on ball. So something has to give, and you have to find another spot. He probably doesn't shake a man or lose a man as a half forward, Kennedy. So I thought it was really – I'm looking forward to seeing this weekend whether that was just a pre-season build-up type mode, get some minutes into him without knocking him around, or whether that's actually a move, Josh Kennedy down back.
Do you expect McCartin to play round, or Paddy McCartin to play round one on the basis of that first glimpse?
He'd been their best players on the weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be hard-pressed to leave him out. I think you certainly start with the two McCartins as your key pillars. And they've been trying to free up Rampy and the other guys for quite some time. So this is a perfect fit for them. Ladham's in the ruck's another one. He played a fair bit forward because obviously they had a Hickey there, and he's a threat. He had probably 3 or 4 shots at goal, kicked a nice one round the body. So I was really thrilled for them. I still want to see whether they're absolutely tough enough, Sydney. So we're talking about small margins here. We're talking about them being a great ball movement team and fantastic at stopping the opposition moving the ball. But the gap in the game last year was they weren't tough enough. They really weren't a great contested ball or clearance team. So that's still a little question mark from the weekend. That nothing stamped it to say that that's shifted. When you look at the Giants, I thought they'd really made some defensive improvements. They created a lot of turnovers, and that's been their big problem over the last few years against a good ball movement team. Lockie Ash, he was a high draft pick a few years ago. He's in his 4th year now. He's played just short of 40 games of AFL footy. He had a big statement game on the weekend. Yep, I'm ready to become a prime ball winner for this team. Connor Stone. Not a lot of people would know much about Connor Stone. Only played half a dozen games of AFL footy, really good inside the forward 50. Did some really creative things. Jesse Hogan, wait till you see how Jesse's looking. I mean, everyone looks good at this time of year, but there's some players, when they're getting that next opportunity again, their third opportunity. He had a good year last year, Jesse, but he got banged up with injuries a lot through the course of last season. He just looks ripping fit and ready for a prime time opportunity to get back to where we know he can get to in 2022.
Everyone sees what they want to see, I reckon, at this time of year. What about the performance of Cornelio? Looks back to his old self coming through on the Temper text 0433 98 11 16. Temper, a mattress like no other.
Very good, very good. And just when you're sort of questioning whether you think practice matches are the be-all, end-all, Buddy put in a stinker, and I just had to think, you know what, he's not interested. He's not interested in mid-February or late, even anything to do with February, he's not interested in. So we'll see him ramp up over the next couple of weeks. But Riccardi was the other one, contested. We saw Riccardi come in. I think he kicked 5 goals in one of his early games. Might have been over in Perth, whether it was last year or even the year before. So he looked like he was ready to command a prime role, round one onwards as a full forward / centre half forward. So there was a lot to like about this game. This was another one of those games where quite a few different names jumped up, and I think the Giants have seriously improved defensively. So that gives them a real opportunity.
What about Port Adelaide? So Brett Montgomery described it as a reality check. You don't really want reality checks in February, I don't think. There was a lot of that language which, you get a poor performance in April and that belongs there. They were, the headline had them described as pathetic power, which is not a headline you typically see around practice matches.
No, I didn't think they were pathetic. I think that at quarter time it was 7 shots to 6, 6-2 to 1-5. I think Finlayson still looked really dangerous down there. The absence of Dixon, but their ball movement's still a big issue for them. Taking the ball from one end of the ground to the other. Posed a lot of problems, and conversely, the Suns, their ball movement was really slick. They probably overhandballed at times, but you can see the desire to get the game going. He's taken the brakes off them, Stewie Jew, and said, well, and let's be honest, They were 18th in the competition last year with the ball in hand. They were a poor ball movement team, and they shouldn't be that. They got too many elite draft picks to not be able to move the footy. That's one thing they should be able to do. Okay, I'll cop not defending as good as other teams, but they should be able to move the ball. But when you look at Port Adelaide, a real setback. Pau Pepper doing it looked like a bad hamstring too. Mm-hmm. He really grabbed at that left hamstring, and he was a bit of a shining light early. Butters and Rosie spent a lot of time in at centre bounces. Butters looks a natural in there. I'm not convinced about Rosie in at centre bounces just yet. I'm not sold on the fact that he's an absolute contested possession player. I think he's more of a swooper that finishes. And that's okay. If that's what he is, he does that really well. But I'll be interested to watch him over the next few weeks to see if he is that player, because I'm not sure. There's a couple of names that no one wants to talk about the Suns. And that's okay, because they haven't given you anything to talk about. But there's a couple of kids up there that made a couple of statements. Jeremy Sharp, his running and his ball use was a feature on the weekend. Long kicked a couple of early goals. Alex Davies, you've been unsigned. He played one game last year. I think they gave him a game in round 23 last year. He did some things where you say, well, there's another two. Isaac Rankin, looks like the penny dropped for Isaac. He played with some real intensity. He played with a level of aggression and anger that I hadn't seen before. He stood under a couple of high balls, which he's never done at AFL level. We know about his class, but he had a team first mindset with everything he did, and he set up a lot of scoring. He was terrific. So there's a little bit to like about the Suns if you can believe what we've seen early on. But that was a good win. That's a strong win against a very good AFL team in Port Adelaide.
And Brisbane walloped Adelaide in the same way that Melbourne walloped North Melbourne, so not totally unexpected. I thought they were excellent, the Lions, and maybe that's the class divide there. As impressive as Melbourne had been, I thought the way the Lions moved the ball and threatened was in a pretty similar mode.
Yeah, spot on. They're a serious footy team, aren't they? And we ain't talking small margins for them. So they may be looking for one or two players to just play more important roles. Okay, so they move Lockie Neely out of the prime midfield minutes, for 100% of the game, and you see Jared Berry come in, who's now into his sixth year. Like, it's about time that he takes control, and he did. He was fantastic in that midfield, absolute beast. Zach Bailey looks like he's lost about 5 or 6 kilos. He now looks like a midfield / player that can then go forward, not a forward that can come in only for bit parts in the midfield. But he's in his 5th year now. He's played 70 games, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's that best finals player type for the Lions at the end of the year that they really crave. They're not looking for a lot. Cam Rayner was back. Gee, he looks strong. He looks really thick in the chest and not that boy that we saw probably 18 months ago. They got a ripper in the draft, Gerard. Darcy Wilmot. Now, you'll remember the kid we interviewed on Fox Footy, just mucking around with his friends, and the whole joint was going crazy out at Montmorency or Greensboro or somewhere. But he was involved in everything, and he was really calm and really poised with the ball. So he's ready to play AFL. I think they would have been shocked with what they saw so early from this young kid. And Noah Ainsworth, who we haven't seen for 18 months. He's played 9 games in a couple of years. As a wingman back from a knee, he was terrific. So, again, they're not looking for a lot, but they've got, instead of batting to maybe 25, 26, maybe they're going to bat to 30 this year, which is going to be critical given what we know is coming. There's going to be some COVID interruptions, and they've got now some serious depth on what is already a pretty good list.